Fossil fuel power production. Since this is such a dominant use of energy sources, it gets a special mention in the syllabus. There are 5 points to look at: the historical and geographical perspective, about the energy density of fossil fuels, the advantages and disadvantages to do with the transportation and storage of fossil fuels, the efficiency of power stations, and the environmental problems with the recovery of fossil fuels and their use. So, the historical and geographical reasons for widespread use of fossil fuels. This happened with developed countries, Europe and America. They started to mine fossil fuels around the 1700s and used the coal on a small scale then. Geographically, the coal was used near to where it was mined. The coal basically fueled the Industrial Revolution, which happened in the 1800s, early 1800s. All the machines were driven by coal, and this explosion of technology, of industry, was able to be supported due to the supply of fossil fuel, in particular coal. Power stations, electrical power stations, were started to generate electricity from the late 1800s. Now, for example, in the USA, it is said that the average person uses 10 kilowatts per person. If you look at the world average, it's roughly 10% of that. Also, mining techniques have become more and more efficient, and it means that we're able to satisfy the demand for coal. Here it gives an example. This is the GDP, the gross domestic product, per person. This is from 15 years ago. You can see this is in thousands of US dollars per person in 1997. And this is the electricity consumption per person. You see that the least developed countries, they don't have very much power usage. The greater the GDP, the more power is used per person. You can see this fairly straight relationship here. It's interesting to see USA is a little bit higher than the norm, and Canada is much higher than the norm. You can speculate as to why that might be. Energy density of fossil fuels. The energy density is quite high, and so therefore we're able to meet the energy demands by using fossil fuels, in particular coal and oil, and we're able to supply enough electricity to meet the different countries' needs. The advantages and disadvantages of transportation and storage of fossil fuels. Advantages. Transportation of coal, for example, is cheap and easy. You don't need specialist equipment, specialist training, and it can be by road or rail. Oil needs special transport, like tankers or pipelines to transfer oil. And storage is not life-threatening like nuclear sources. Need to be stored in the right way. Disadvantages. In transportation, there have been problems in the past with oil tankers that where the body has been ruptured, and we've had pollution and massive oil slicks, which causes environmental disasters. It can be stored, but it has to be stored in large tanks. And coal, if kept uncovered, the rain, when it rains on the coal, can cause pollution. Some of the sulfur compounds in the coal can run into the soil and cause pollution to the soil. The overall efficiency of power stations. This depends on the source and depends on the power station, but on average, coal is around 30%, natural gas is 42%, and oil is about the same as well. Sometimes these questions are asked in paper 1. The environmental problems with the recovery, in other words mining, of fossil fuels and their use in power stations. Coal mining causes environmental disasters where it is mined, because in coal there's a high sulfur content and traces of heavy metals causing acidic water in the area. Oil drilling, there's a risk of accidents. In 1988 there was a Piper Alpha disaster where I think 200 people were killed on an oil rig, and a lot of oil was spilled into the North Sea. The use in power stations, the production of greenhouse gases, in other words carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide, and of course water as well.